Commander Yuki gripped the metal railing of his command bridge as another massive explosion lit up the darkness of space. The colony transport ship Peaceful Dawn had been carrying 3,000 Zephyrian families to safety. But twisted metal and fire floating in the void? Damn them, he whispered, watching the orange flames die out in the cold vacuum. His blue-scaled hands trembled with rage and helplessness. In just 72 hours, the hegemony war machine had destroyed 12 peaceful settlements across the outer colonies. The bridge of the ZDF. Starlight buzzed with nervous energy. Officers moved between glowing control panels, while holographic displays showed the advancing enemy fleet. Red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow. "Commander, incoming transmission from the Silver Wing," called out Lieutenant Zara, her voice tight with stress. The young communications officer had been working non-stop, trying to coordinate the desperate evacuation efforts. "Put it through," Yuki ordered. His four eyes focused on the main VIEWSCREEN. Captain Voss appeared on the screen, his usually calm demeanor shattered. Behind him, smoke filled his bridge. "Yuki, they're not just destroying our ships. They're hunting down the escape pods. They're targeting the children specifically." Yuki's blood ran cold. The hegemony had always been ruthless, but this was pure evil. "How many survivors from Kepler Station?" "None," Voss replied, his voice breaking. "The station had 40,000 civilians. Families, scientists, artists, they're all gone." The transmission cut to static as another explosion bloomed in the distance. The Silver Wing had been vaporized by a hegemony dreadnought that seemed to materialize from nowhere. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from Sector 7, reported Commander Thane from the tactical station. His tentacles worked frantically across the alien controls. "It's a full hegemony. Battle group. 15 heavy cruisers and a mothership." Yuki studied the tactical display with growing dread. The enemy vessels moved with deadly precision, their black holes seeming to absorb light itself. Worst of all, their adaptive technology meant that every weapon the Zephyrians had used against them was now completely useless. "What about our new plasma cannons?" asked Lieutenant Kex, hope flickering in his voice. "Useless," Thane reported grimly. "They adapted to plasma technology after the first engagement at Rigel Prime. Their shields now absorb our energy weapons and convert them into power for their own systems." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of failing life support systems. Yuki looked around at his crew, brave beings who had served the Confederation faithfully for decades. They were all thinking the same thing. This was the end. "Sir," whispered his aide, a young Zephyrian named Kai, who had joined the fleet straight from the academy. "There might be one option. It's crazy, but ... Speak," Yuki commanded. Kai swallowed nervously. "The humans. They live way out in the rim. Territories. Most species avoid them because they read ... strange. But our intelligence reports suggest they might be different from other races." "Different how?" Yuki asked, though he was grasping at straws now. "They're the only species that's never been conquered. Ever. The hegemony tried to expand into human space about 50 years ago, but they pulled back completely. No one knows why." Commander Thane looked up from his station. "Sir, the rumors say humans are aggressive, warlike. They supposedly fought wars against their own kind for thousands of years." "Savages," muttered another officer. "Maybe," Kai said quietly. "But they're alive, and they've never asked anyone for help. They just ... exist out there in the dark." Yuki considered this. The Zephyrian Confederation had always been peaceful. They solved problems through diplomacy, trade, and scientific advancement. War was something they read about in history books, not something they lived through. But now their children were dying. Their worlds were burning. And peaceful solutions weren't working against an enemy that wanted total extermination. "Do we have any way to contact them?" Yuki asked. "Long-range quantum transmission," Kai replied. "But sir, they might not even respond. Humans are known for being ... isolated." Another explosion rocked the ship as hegemony fighters strafed past. Through the viewports, Yuki could see escape pods being systematically destroyed. Families dying in the cold vacuum of space. "Do it," he ordered. "Send them everything. Our tactical data, our situation reports, everything about the hegemony. Maybe they'll understand." Kai's fingers flew over the communication console. "Message transmitted, sir. It'll take 6 hours to reach human space." The message shot through the void at faster-than-light speed, carrying the desperate plea of a dying civilization. It traveled past dead systems, through asteroid fields, beyond the edge of known space to where humanity had carved out their mysterious territory. On the bridge of the massive human battleship, U.S. Retribution, Admiral Hannah Kim was reviewing fleet reports when the communication alert chimed. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, but her presence commanded respect from every officer on the bridge. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Park, "receiving a priority transmission from outside our space. It's from the Zephyrian Confederation." Admiral Kim raised an eyebrow. "The Zephyrians? They've never contacted us before." "No, ma'am. The message is encrypted, but it appears to be a distress call." Kim stood up slowly. In her 30 years of service, she had never seen a non-human species voluntarily contact humanity.
Most aliens
Considered humans to be dangerous and unpredictable. "Decrypt it and put it on the main screen." The holographic display flickered to life, showing Commander Yuki's exhausted face. The alien's 4 eyes were filled with desperation as he spoke. "We are the Zephyrian Confederation. Our worlds are burning. Our children are dying. The hegemony is committing genocide across our star systems, and our weapons cannot stop them. We have heard whispers of your kind, that you are warriors who fight when others cannot. Please, if you have any mercy, any honor, help us. We are running out of time." The bridge fell silent. Admiral Kim read the message twice, her expression growing darker with each word. Then she turned to her officers. "Get me the Joint Chiefs. Now." The emergency alarm echoed through the corridors of Luna Base as military leaders from across human space rushed to the war room. Admiral Hannah Kim walked briskly through the sterile white hallways, her boots clicking against the polished floor. She had seen the Zephyrian message 3 times now, and each viewing made her angrier. The massive circular chamber buzzed with activity as holographic displays came online. General Day Park stood near the central table, his scarred face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical readouts. The old soldier had fought in the Martian Rebellion and the asteroid wars. He knew what real warfare looked like. "Show me everything," Admiral Kim ordered as she took her seat. The room darkened as 3-dimensional images filled the space above them. Burning Zephyrian colonies appeared in horrifying detail. Children's bodies floating in space, entire cities reduced to ash. The systematic destruction was unlike anything the human military had seen in decades. "Jesus Christ," whispered Colonel Sue Lee, leaning forward in her chair. She was the youngest person in the room, but her tactical mind was legendary. "Look at these attack patterns. They're not just conquering territory, they're erasing entire populations." General Park pointed to a series of red markers on the display. 12 colonies in 3 days. The hegemony isn't taking prisoners. They're not even bothering to strip resources. This is pure extermination. "What do we know about their technology?" asked Admiral Kim. Colonel Lee manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up detailed scans of hegemony warships, adaptive shielding, and armor. Every time the Zephyrians hit them with a weapon, their ships learned to resist it. Plasma cannons, particle beams, even kinetic rounds, nothing works twice. "Smart," muttered General Park, "but not smart enough." The massive doors at the far end of the chamber hissed open, and Fleet Admiral Ji-woo entered. As the elderly Korean man walked slowly to his chair, Ji-woo had been fighting humanity's wars for 40 years. He had personally designed the military doctrines that kept Earth safe from alien threats. "Report," he said simply, settling into his chair. Admiral Kim stood up. "Sir, the Zephyrian Confederation has requested military assistance. They're facing complete genocide from an enemy called the hegemony. Current estimates suggest their entire species could be extinct within 2 weeks, and their military capabilities, essentially zero, sir. The enemy has adaptive technology that counters everything. They try. Fleet Admiral Ji Woo studied the tactical displays for several long minutes. His weathered face showed no emotion as he watched the recorded destruction of Zephyrian worlds. Finally, he spoke. General Park, your assessment? Textbook genocide. Sir, the hegemony is following classic extermination protocols. No negotiation, no mercy, no survivors. If we don't act, we'll be watching an entire civilization die. Colonel Lee. Their adaptive technology is impressive, but it has limitations. It can only adapt to energy-based attacks they've already experienced. Our kinetic weapons and exotic matter systems are completely unknown to them. Ji Woo nodded slowly. Admiral Kim, what's your recommendation? Full military intervention, sir? Cannot allow genocide to occur when we have the power to stop it? The room was quiet except for the hum of the holographic projectors. Ji Woo closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with cold determination. Gentlemen, ladies, this is exactly the scenario we've been preparing for. The hegemony has made a critical error. They've revealed themselves as a species that commits genocide. That makes them a threat to all life in the galaxy, including humanity. Stood up, his voice growing stronger. Operation Thunderhammer is approved. Full deployment authorization. Admiral Kim, you'll command the operation. Sir, how many ships should we deploy? Admiral Kim asked. The Zephyrians are probably expecting a small support fleet. Ji Woo's eyes grew cold. Admiral, what's the first rule of human warfare? Overwhelming force, sir. Exactly. Deploy Battle Group 7 in its entirety. 200 ships, full combat loadout. Colonel Lee looked surprised. Sir, that's our entire deep space fleet. For a rescue mission. Isn't that Colonel Ji Woo? Interrupted. This isn't a rescue mission. It was a demonstration. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity does not tolerate genocide. When we respond to atrocities, we respond with everything we have. General Park smiled grimly. The Zephyrians asked for help. They're about to learn that humans don't do anything halfway. Within minutes, priority alerts were broadcasting across human space. From the shipyards of Mars to the defense stations around Jupiter, 200 of humanity's most advanced warships began powering up their engines. Captain Seungmin received the alert aboard his destroyer, Soul's Pride, while conducting patrol duties near the asteroid belt. All hands, this is the captain. We've been ordered to join Battle Group 7. This is not a drill. Set course for the rendezvous point, maximum burn. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Bong Su, looked up from his console. Sir, what's the mission?
I decide.
Prevention, Captain Min replied coldly. Someone's been killing civilians. We're going to stop them. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out on hundreds of ships. The heavy cruiser Busan Thunder launched from Luna orbit. The battleship Incheon Hammer departed from the Mars shipyards. Carrier groups, destroyer squadrons, and support vessels all converged on the rally point beyond Pluto. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of her flagship, the massive dreadnought U.S. Retribution. Through the viewports, she could see the assembled fleet, 200 vessels representing the finest of human military technology. Admiral called her communications officer. We're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet. Commander Yuki wants to know our estimated arrival time. Tell him 72 hours, Kim replied. And tell him to evacuate any civilians. From the combat zone. Should I mention our fleet size? Admiral Kim smiled coldly. No. Let it be a surprise. The massive human fleet engaged their jump drives simultaneously, disappearing into hyperspace in a flash of blue light.
Oh.
They were heading toward a war zone where an entire species was being systematically murdered. The hegemony had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed that the galaxy would watch their genocide in silence, just like every other species had done for centuries, but they had never encountered humans before. And humans had a very simple rule about bullies: hit them so hard they never get up again. As the fleet raced through hyperspace, Admiral Kim reviewed the tactical data one more time. The hegemony's adaptive technology was impressive, but humans had been preparing for this kind of enemy for decades. They had weapons and tactics that no alien species had ever seen. Weapon status? She asked her tactical officer. All ships report full combat readiness, ma'am. Kinetic bombardment systems are online. Quantum torpedo tubes are loaded. Gravity well generators are standing by. Admiral Kim nodded. The Zephyrians had asked for warriors. They were about to discover that when humans go to war, they don't just bring soldiers, they bring annihilation. The massive black ships of the hegemony. Fleet floated in perfect formation around the dying Zephyrian homeworld. Their hulls seemed to absorb all light, making them look like holes cut into the fabric of space itself. Overlord Vex stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Death's Echo, watching with satisfaction as the planet's last defensive shields collapsed in showers of sparks. Beautiful, he hissed through his insect-like mandibles. The hegemony commander was a towering creature with 4 arms and gleaming black armor that seemed to pulse with dark energy. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, but the systematic destruction of peaceful civilizations never got old. Overlord called his tactical officer, a smaller creature with multiple eyes arranged across its skull. The planetary defenses have failed completely. The population is defenseless. Vex's mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his kind. Excellent, signaled the harvest ships. Begin population extraction protocols. Healthy specimens for the slave markets and the rest. Disposed of efficiently. The bridge of the Death's Echo was a nightmarish place of pulsing organic technology and screaming metal. Hegemony ships weren't just built, they were grown from a combination of stolen alien tech and their own twisted biotechnology. Living. Walls pulsed with veins of dark energy, while weapon systems that looked more like giant insects than cannons swiveled to track targets down on the planet's surface. Zephyrian families huddled in underground shelters as the harvest ships descended. These smaller vessels were equipped with gravity nets designed to scoop up entire city blocks full of civilians. The lucky ones would become slaves. The rest would simply disappear. "Sir," the sensor operator suddenly called out, his voice trembling. "With confusion, I'm detecting massive hyperspace distortions. Something big is coming." Overlord Vex turned toward the main display, his 4 eyes focusing on the swirling energy patterns appearing at the edge of the system. More Zephyrian reinforcements? How many ships? I can't get an accurate count, sir. The signatures are unlike anything in our database. But the energy readings suggest. The operator paused, double-checking his instruments. Over 200 vessels, sir. Vex burst into harsh laughter that echoed through the bridge like breaking glass. 200? These pathetic creatures actually think they can match our fleet? This will be amusing. The hyperspace tier suddenly exploded with brilliant white light as the human fleet dropped into normal space. 212 warships materialized in perfect formation, their sleek hulls gleaming like silver daggers against the black of space. Admiral Hannah Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the enemy formation. The human flagship was a kilometer-long beast of titanium and steel, bristling with weapons that the hegemony had never seen before. "Tactical assessment," she ordered calmly. 47 enemy vessels, Admiral reported her tactical officer, Commander Lee Bo, Ra. They're arranged in a standard siege formation around the planet. Their ships appear to be biomechanical hybrids with adaptive shielding. Admiral Kim nodded, her face showing no emotion. "Communications open a channel to all ships." "A channel. Open, ma'am." "All ships. This is Admiral Kim. The enemy has committed genocide against civilian populations. Under Article 7 of the Terran War Crimes Protocol, they are designated as hostile non-combatants, with no rights under galactic law. Execute Protocol 7. No survivors." On the bridge of the Death's Echo, Overlord Vex watched the human fleet with growing confusion. Why aren't they hailing us? Where are their demands for surrender? "Sir," his communications officer reported nervously, "they're not transmitting any diplomatic frequencies. But I am detecting massive power buildups. Across their fleet, Power buildups? For what? That's when the first gravity mine activated. The device materialized directly beside a hegemony cruiser. It's looking like nothing more than a small metallic sphere. Then it switched on, and the laws of physics went insane. The gravity field that erupted from the mine was equivalent to a small star. Compressed into a space the size of a basketball, the hegemony cruiser didn't have time to scream. The 1,000-meter warship was crushed into a dense cube of metal, barely 10 meters across, in less than 3 seconds. The gravitational shockwave that followed cracked the hulls of 2 nearby vessels. What in the void was that? Vex roared, but he never got an answer. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of his destroyer Soul's Fury, watching his weapons officer prepare the quantum torpedo systems. The Korean captain was a calm man in his 40s, with graying temples and steady hands that had seen combat in the outer colony wars. Target acquired, reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Park Jin. 3 enemy cruisers in formation, 7,000 kilometers off our starboard bow. Fire, Minho ordered simply. The quantum torpedo launched from the destroyer's forward tube, accelerating to near light speed in seconds. Unlike traditional missiles, this weapon didn't explode on impact. Instead, it destabilized the quantum foam of space-time itself, creating a bubble of pure annihilation that consumed everything within a kilometer radius. The 3 hegemony cruisers simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart. They were erased from reality itself, leaving nothing but empty space where they had been floating seconds before. My God, whispered the Zephyrian liaison officer who had been assigned to Minho's ship. The blue-scaled alien stared at the display in shock. You fight like demons from the deepest void? Captain Minho turned to look at the alien, his expression calm and professional. No, Commander. We fight like humans. There's a difference. Across the battlefield, human ships deployed weapons that defied everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. Kinetic bombardment platforms launched tungsten rods at significant fractions of light speed, punching through adaptive shields like they were paper. Gravity well generators created artificial black holes that swallowed entire squadrons of enemy. Vessels, the destroyer Busan Thunder, deployed something called a phase disruptor that caused hegemony ships to suddenly exist in 7 dimensions at once. The results were spectacular and horrifying. Overlord Vex watched, his fleet being systematically annihilated with growing terror. His adaptive technology was useless. These humans were using weapons and tactics that his computers couldn't even classify, much less adapt to. Fall back, he screamed into his communications system. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. But the humans had thought of that too. The moment hegemony ships tried to activate their jump drives, they discovered that the humans had deployed hyperspace interdiction fields. They were trapped in normal space with nowhere to run. Sir, his tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with panic, we've lost 31 ships in 4 minutes. Our adaptive systems can't process their weapon signatures. Impossible. Our technology can adapt to anything. Not this, sir. They're using principles of physics that don't exist in our databases. Weaponized gravity, quantum foam manipulation, dimensional phase shifting. We've never encountered anything like this. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Kim watched the systematic destruction of the hegemony fleet with professional satisfaction. Status report. 43 enemy vessels destroyed, Commander Lee reported, for attempting to flee. No human casualties. Pursue and destroy the fleeing vessels. No survivors, no witnesses. The few remaining hegemony ships that managed to break free of the interdiction field jumped blindly into hyperspace, their crews broadcasting desperate warnings across their empire's communication networks. This is the Bone Crusher, screamed one panicked captain. The humans, they don't fight like any species we've encountered. They don't fight to win territory or resources. They fight to erase you from existence. Stay away from human space. Stay away from their allies. They are death itself. Within 4 hours, the once mighty hegemony siege fleet was nothing but debris floating around the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet's surface was still intact. Its billions of inhabitants, saved from slavery and death. Admiral Kim stood looking out at the wreckage, her expression thoughtful. Signal the Zephyrian government. Tell them their world is secure. Yes. Ma, should I also inform them of our casualty count? What casualty count? Kim asked. We didn't lose a single ship or crew member. The Zephyrians had asked for help. They had received something far more powerful, a demonstration that humanity didn't just fight wars. They ended them, completely and permanently. The Emergency War Council of the Hegemony Empire convened in the darkest depths of their fortress. World Dominion Prime. Supreme Overlord Malthur, a massive creature with 6 arms and armor that seemed to be carved from black stone, slammed his fist against the obsidian table. 47 ships. He roared, his voice echoing through the cavernous chamber. 47 of our finest vessels destroyed by these TOWs and not a single enemy casualty. War Marshal Krex, his tactical advisor, studied the holographic battle recordings with 4 glowing red eyes. Supreme Overlord, their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. They don't just defeat our adaptive systems, they ignore them completely. Impossible, Malthur hissed.
Ow!
Our bioships can adapt to any weapon, any tactic. We've conquered half the galaxy using this advantage. Not against humans, sir. They use weapons that our computers can't even classify. Gravity manipulation, quantum, field disruption, dimensional warfare. It's as if they fight with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Malthur's 6 arms moved frantically across the command interface, pulling up fleet reports from across the Empire. Then we crush them with numbers. How many ships do we have available?
10,000, sir?
Every fleet, every battle group, every patrol squadron. If we mobilize everything, we can overwhelm them through sheer force. The Supreme Overlord's mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. Excellent. Deploy them all. These humans want a war? We'll give them extinction. Within hours, the largest fleet in hegemony history was assembling. Massive bioships emerged from hidden bases across their empire. Dreadnoughts the size of small moons joined the formation alongside swarms of fighter craft and support vessels. The hegemony war machine was fully awakened. Their quantum computers ran millions of battle simulations, each one showing the same result: 97% probability of human defeat. The mathematics were simple: 10,000 ships against 200. No species could survive those odds. They were about to learn that humans don't fight with mathematics. Admiral Hanakim stood in the intelligence center of the UES Retribution, studying the tactical displays with cold efficiency.
Oh, the reports.
We're streaming in from reconnaissance drones and deep space sensors. The hegemony was mobilizing everything they had. 10,000 ships, reported Commander Lee Bo-Ra, her voice steady despite the overwhelming numbers. They're converging from 12 different sectors. It's estimated arrival in 4 days. Impressive, Admiral Kim said calmly. They're taking us seriously. Captain Hoon Soo, her tactical advisor, looked concerned. Admiral, even with our technological advantages, those are impossible odds. Should we request reinforcements from home? Admiral Kim turned to face her officers, her expression as cold as the vacuum of space. Captain, what's the first lesson of human military doctrine? Overwhelming force, ma'am? Exactly, but there's a second lesson that most people forget. She moved to the central display, highlighting the approaching hegemony fleets. When someone escalates, we don't just match their escalation. We exceed it exponentially. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. The enemy has chosen to deploy their entire military against us. They believe numbers will defeat superior tactics and technology. Signal all vessels. Implement the Broken Arrow Protocol. Cross the human fleet. Weapon systems that had remained dormant suddenly came online. These weren't the conventional armaments they'd used against the siege fleet. These were the weapons humanity had developed for fighting entire civilizations. Commander Yujin sat in the pilot's seat of his stealth frigate Ghost of Busan, watching the tactical display with professional interest. His ship was barely visible. 2 sensors, wrapped in layers of advanced cloaking technology that bent light and gravity around its hull. Sir, his weapons officer, Lieutenant Kim Soo-min, reported quietly. We're receiving deployment orders. Target, Hegemony Industrial Complex in the Void's Edge system. Understood. Set course and engage stealth protocols. The ghost of Busan slipped through hyperspace like a shadow, emerging near a massive hegemony shipyard that had been building vessels for their war effort. The facility was enormous, a collection of orbital platforms, asteroid mining stations, and construction bays that stretched across half the system. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Kim as she studied the sensors. "There must be 1,000 ships under construction here." "Not for long, Commander," you replied, activating the weapons systems. "Deploy the builder drones." What emerged from the frigate's cargo bay looked like a swarm of metallic insects, each no larger than a human fist. But these weren't ordinary drones. They were self-replicating construction units programmed with a very specific mission: total deconstruction. The drones spread out across the hegemony facility, landing on holes and platforms with barely a whisper. Then they began to work. Each drone could break down metal at the molecular level, using the raw materials to build more drones. Within minutes, one drone became two became four became 8. Commander, you watched through his ship's sensors as the massive shipyard began to dissolve. Not explode, not burn, simply cease to exist as billions of tiny machines consumed everything in their path. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the facility. They're requesting immediate evacuation." "Assistance? Put it through." The panicked voice of a hegemony engineer filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel. This is Engineer Prime Voss. Our facility is being consumed by some kind of nano-weapon. We have 10,000 workers trapped on the platforms. Please, we surrender. We need immediate evacuation. Commander, you consider this?" For a moment, negative. Should have thought about mercy before committing genocide. He launched a spread of quantum torpedoes that finished the job, turning the remaining fragments of the shipyard into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Similar scenes played out across hegemony space as human forces deployed weapons that turned warfare into an exact science. Captain Park Dong-hyung commanded the heavy cruiser Incheon Thunder, which had been assigned to eliminate hegemony command centers. His ship didn't bother with traditional space combat. Instead, it deployed something called a temporal displacement mine. The device created a localized time field that aged everything within a 50-kilometer radius by several thousand years. Hegemony command stations simply crumbled to dust as entropy caught up with them all at once. "This isn't warfare," broadcast a desperate hegemony commander on an open channel. "This is extinction. You're not fighting soldiers. You're erasing entire civilizations." Captain Park keyed his transmitter. "You're learning. Yeah. Every Zephyrian child you murdered, every innocent family you destroyed, this is the price. Wanted to commit genocide? Now you get to experience it from the other side." The systematic destruction of hegemony infrastructure continued, with ruthless efficiency. Human forces didn't just attack military targets, they dismantled the entire foundation of the hegemony's ability to make war. Shipyards, resource extraction facilities, command centers, communication relays. Everything that made their empire function was methodically destroyed. Admiral Kim watched the reports flood in from across human battle groups. Status report. "Percent of enemy military infrastructure destroyed," Commander Lee reported. "Estimated completion in 6 days. And our casualties? 0, ma'am. The enemy hasn't been able to engage our forces directly. The hegemony's mighty fleets found themselves chasing ghosts. Human ships would appear without warning, deploy weapons that defied understanding, then vanish back into hyperspace before any counterattack could be launched. It was like trying to fight smoke. War Marshal Krex stood in the ruins of what had been the Empire's primary communication hub, watching automated human drones strip away the last functional components. "Supreme Overlord," he transmitted to Dominion Prime. "We're not fighting a military force. We're fighting a machine that turns warfare into engineering." "What do you mean?" Alther's voice crackled through the failing communication system. "Hey, don't fight to win battles, sir. They fight to solve problems. And they've identified the hegemony empire as a problem that needs to be permanently solved." As if to prove his point, the communication array finally collapsed under the relentless work of the human drones. War Marshal Krex was left standing. In the darkness, surrounded by the debris of his civilization's ability to coordinate its own defense. 2 weeks after the hegemony had mobilized their massive fleet, half of their military infrastructure was nothing but scrap metal floating in space. Their 10,000 ships had been reduced to hunting phantoms, while human forces systematically dismantled everything that made their empire function. The hegemony had wanted to escalate. It learned that when humans escalate, they don't stop until the problem is solved forever. The command bunker of Dominion. Prime had been built 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface, designed to survive anything the galaxy could throw at it. Reinforced with quantum-locked armor and powered by the planet's core itself, it was supposed to be the most secure location in hegemony space. Supreme Overlord Malthor paced frantically across the obsidian floor, his 6 arms trembling as he watched the tactical displays. His empire, built over centuries of conquest and terror, was collapsing in real time. Reports flooded in from across hegemony space, entire star systems going dark, massive fleets simply vanishing without a trace. Status. Report. He roared at his cowering advisors. War Marshal Krex. His armor cracked, and smoking from his desperate escape from the outer colonies, stepped forward with shaking limbs. Supreme Overlord, we've lost contact with 60% of our territory. The human forces aren't just defeating our fleets, they're erasing them from existence. How many ships do we have left? 3,000, sir, but they're scattered across the Empire, cut off from command and control. Humans have systematically destroyed every communication relay, every supply depot, every... Krex's voice broke. Sir, they've dismantled our entire civilization's infrastructure in 2 weeks. Malthor slammed his fists against the control panel, cracking the reinforced surface. Possible we had 10,000 ships, the finest war machine in the galaxy. Sir, interrupted the sensor operator, his multiple eyes wide with terror. I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching the system. It's the human fleet. The main display flickered to life, showing space around Dominion Prime. What they saw made every creature in the bunker freeze with primal fear. 200 human warships had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around their star, not around the planet, around the actual sun itself. They've surrounded our star, Malthor whispered, his voice cracking with disbelief. Ah! What kind of species surrounds a star? War Marshal Krex studied the formation with growing horror. Sir, those aren't attack positions. They're construction positions. Whatever they're planning to do to our sun, they need multiple ships to coordinate it. The communication systems suddenly activated without authorization. The holographic display showed the face of Admiral Hannah Kim, her expression as calm and professional as if she were discussing the weather. This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Defense Force, speaking to the leadership of the Hegemony Empire, she began, her voice echoing through the bunker. Over the past month, you initiated systematic genocide against the Zephyrian Confederation. Our allies and protectorates, you have experienced our response to such actions. Malthor found his voice. Human, you have no authority in this sector. We demand you withdraw immediately. Admiral Kim's expression didn't change. You are in no position to demand anything. I am here to offer terms, which you will accept within the next 30 minutes. These terms are non-negotiable. The display showed detailed holographic documents as Kim continued. Complete and immediate withdrawal from all occupied territories. Surrender of all military assets to human authorities. War crimes tribunals for your entire leadership council. Full reparations to all victim species, including complete reconstruction of destroyed colonies and cities. And if we refuse, Malthor demanded. Though his voice had lost much of its earlier bravado, Admiral Kim's calm expression finally shifted not to anger, but to something far more terrifying. Cold, calculating certainty. Then you'll discover what humans call stellar engineering. We will collapse your star into a controlled black hole and use the resulting energy to power our next fleet expansion. War Marshal Krex stepped forward, his sensors analyzing the human ship formations. That's impossible. No species has technology capable of stellar manipulation. You're welcome to test that theory, Kim replied. Captain Donghaeon. Show them what we're prepared to do. On the bridge of the heavy cruiser Soul's Vengeance, Captain Donghaeon received the order with grim satisfaction. Deploy stellar compression array. Demonstration mode only. His ship launched what looked like a small probe toward Dominion Prime's sun. The device was barely the size of a shuttle, but when it activated, the results were visible across the entire system. A section of the star's surface suddenly compressed inward, creating a temporary gravity well that pulled solar plasma into impossible spirals. The probe shut down after 10 seconds. But the message was clear: humanity could manipulate stars themselves. My God, whispered one of Malthor's advisors. They can actually do it. They can kill our sun. Admiral Kim's voice continued from the display. That was a demonstration using less than 1% of our capabilities. A full stellar compression event would turn your sun into a black hole within 17 minutes. Every planet in this system would be consumed, along with your entire species. Malthor looked around the bunker at his terrified leadership council. These were creatures who had conquered dozens of worlds, who had built an empire on fear and brutality. Now they cowered. Like children before a species they had never even heard of a month ago. How? He asked quietly. How did you defeat us so completely? We had superior numbers, adaptive technology, centuries of military experience. Because you made a fundamental error in judgment, Kim replied. You assumed that all species fight the same way. You fight to conquer, to dominate, to expand your territory. Humans fight to solve problems. And you, Supreme Overlord Malthor, became a problem that needed solving. Captain Park Min-jae, monitoring hegemony communications from his destroyer Bizon's hammer, watched as panic spread through their remaining command structure. Admiral, he reported, their military commanders are requesting permission to surrender independently. Their central authority is collapsing. Maintain positions, Kim ordered. Let them understand the full scope of their situation. Commander. Yu Jin, still aboard his stealth frigate Ghost of Busan, had spent the last week documenting hegemony war crimes. Admiral, I've compiled evidence from 47 destroyed colonies. The systematic nature of their genocide is undeniable. They didn't just kill civilians, they took pleasure in it. Admiral Kim's jaw tightened. Then they'll face justice. All of them. In the bunker, Malthor watched the countdown timer on his display. 23 minutes remaining. Round him, his advisors argued frantically about their options, but they all knew the truth. There were no options. Humanity had demonstrated the ability to end their entire species with surgical precision. Sir, War Marshal Krex said quietly. Our remaining fleets are reporting that human forces are offering safe passage to any hegemony vessels that surrender immediately. They're being surprisingly merciful to common soldiers. Not to us, Malthor realized. No, sir. War crimes tribunals. They intend to put us on trial for genocide. Malthor closed his 4 eyes, feeling the weight of defeat settle on his shoulders. His empire, built on the suffering of countless innocents, was ending not with a glorious final battle, but with complete capitulation to a species that fought wars like they were solving engineering problems. Open a channel, he ordered. Sir, open. A channel to the human fleet. We surrender. Conditionally. 27 minutes after Admiral Kim's ultimatum. The formal surrender documents were transmitted to every human vessel in the system. Across hegemony space, remaining military commanders received the order to stand down and submit to human authority. Commander Yuki of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet stood on the observation deck of the UES Retribution, watching as massive hegemony dreadnoughts powered down their weapons and waited for human escort vessels. The same ships that had terrorized his people now looked like broken toys floating in space. How? He asked Admiral Kim, who had joined him at the viewport. How did you achieve such a complete victory? Our military analysts said it was impossible, Admiral. Kim looked out at the surrendering fleet, her expression thoughtful. Commander, your people asked us for help. But you didn't understand what that meant. You thought you were getting soldiers, maybe some advanced weapons? Instead, you got humans. Most species fight to win battles. Humans fight to solve problems permanently. The hegemony was a problem. A. Species that committed genocide for pleasure. So we didn't just defeat them militarily. We dismantled their entire ability to threaten anyone ever again. As they watched, human ships began escorting surrendering vessels toward processing centers, where war criminals would be separated from common soldiers. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented, a complete accounting for genocide. Enforced by a species that treated justice like a mathematical equation. What happens now? Yuki asked. Now your children sleep safely. To hegemonies. Victims get justice. Every potential aggressor in the galaxy understands that some line should never be crossed. The message spread across galactic civilization faster than light itself. Humanity had arrived on the interstellar stage, not as conquerors or diplomats, but as something far more significant, the enforcers of justice for those who had no other. Hope, the Zephyrian children would indeed sleep safely, across 1,000 worlds. Species that had lived in fear of stronger neighbors could finally breathe freely, knowing that somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity was watching. Asterisk, the in asterisk.